Hey, it's great to have you all here today. Happy that we are talking about this. I thought about it, and let's just cut to the chase. Today we're talking about prenups and about whether or not, as Africans, Nigerians, if we are ripe for considering prenups in our relationships, in our marriages. It's something that is not the norm in our culture, and we want to share. Want to hear your thoughts on that matter. Let's start with. Okay, let me start with Chi since we're going this way. Let's start with Chi.
All right. So, the prenup, right? So basically you have that agreement that the things that you enter the marriage with remain yours if the marriage was to end. And, you see that that's something that's very common or more common in North America. Coming from the African perspective, I know that it hasn't been common, but it's something that I think that is starting to enter into our culture in Nigeria. And, I think it's a good idea actually, because you've heard and you've seen of so many different women and their children, what has happened to them. Maybe they get kicked out, the husband gets a new wife, they get kicked out, maybe the properties that they brought, everything gets taken away by the family of the husband, or vice versa. So for me, I personally think it's a great idea. It's an awkward topic to have with somebody, but I think it's something that we should be thinking of as Africans.
Hmm. Okay. Dio, let's hear what you feel about this.
Well, I think prenup is an elephant in the room for anybody. And if you think
Absolutely.
about it, whether it is the culture of the Americans or the culture that we're bringing it into, which we're catching up with the modernization of our culture, what is bringing up the prenup is the conflict in marriage and is looking for solutions. There's a form of elephant in the room trying to get a solution to something that is a problem. So if you look at prenup, you want to remain the way you are, and also you want to go into marriage just in case you don't stay in marriage. So everybody knows what it is. So is it a good idea to go into marriage that way? If you're a traditionalist, you're going to say absolutely no. And if you're just someone who does not face reality, you say absolutely no. But if you look at the reality of life right now, what is going on is just why don't you just all separate your assets, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then you all feel like you can go out of it unscathed or less of the trauma or the trouble. So I would say that it is the elephant in the room. It just depends on how you want to deal with it. So there's so many ways to look at it. I would say that traditionally it's difficult to accept into a culture that has predetermination of how marriage should be. Let me stop there and let's open it up.
Okay, thank you, Dio. Mike, let's hear what you think.
It's very interesting perspective already. Uh, well, thanks for having me also on the show. Um, there's layers and layers of prenup. We can talk about it for like decades and decades, without getting too far with it. But I just want to start off by saying something. Let's not forget one thing. Marriage was God's idea. Okay, it wasn't any human being's idea. We know from uh, the biblical perspective that if you believe in the Bible and you hold sway, I mean, apologies to other religion, but I'm a Christian, so my reference is the Bible. So the author of marriage is God. Okay, and God, uh, wanted us to function in certain ways in the marriage. If God thought it would be chaotic, He wouldn't have made it an institution. Okay? But the trouble is the people involved in the institution. They are the trouble. Okay, it's not the concept of marriage itself. But we find that these days, as people get more awareness, more education, especially people in the diaspora, especially in some certain cultures, they've embraced the concept of prenup because of mistrust. Let's face it. And unfortunately, the church is getting swamped into it too, because unfortunately, the so-called Christians are not functioning the way they should in the marriage. And that's why we have all sorts of things happening in the marriage. And let's not even forget, from the legal standpoint, the idea of prenup was not for asset sharing. The idea of prenup from the inception was to make life easier, an easier legal framework, if you like. So it wasn't just for divorce, it was also in debt. So if one partner dies, it was just to make it easier. But unfortunately, people have hijacked it, and turned into something else, to all sorts of protection from property, protection from the assets. Because from the get-go, they feel from the start that it's likely to end. So there's a mistrust there, right? So, I mean, there are different perspectives, like I said, there are layers and layers of this. But this is, in a summary, this is just what it is. Prenup has been turned into something else, hijacked and used in the wrong way.
Okay. I'm glad that I didn't say anything at the beginning, that we didn't actually try to define it before we went into it, so that everybody has shared what's their idea about it. What I understand it to be is an arrangement between two people getting married for the eventuality of a situation where there is a separation or a divorce, what happens to their assets. And as you guys have raised different things, somebody talked about if there is nothing in place, then in the event of them separating, for us in our culture, we've had a situation where women have been bearing the brunt, and a man is, maybe something happens with the man, or even he decides to kick the woman out, and all of a sudden the woman is left with nothing to take care of herself and the children because she's taken by surprise. And it's quite possible that because she's the homemaker, she has been staying at home, and so now she's all of a sudden left out in the wilderness. Dio talked about facing the reality of today, that we might want to pretend. Did I get that right? Please let me know if I'm misquoting you. We might want to pretend that what's happening is not happening. But isn't this what we're seeing today around us all over the world? And then Mike brought in an interesting aspect, talking about God and the intention and what prenups were supposed to be, and now what they have been turned to be. I think that all those are interesting views. So generally, what I know is that we are, sorry, I'm having some people trying to join us, at least to see what we're doing, and they're telling me that what I know is that prenups are put in place to protect, like I said, to protect both parties. Sometimes it looks like some people will say that an issue of mistrust will come in. But I just want to remind us that it's not always necessarily because I am only protecting what I have, if I'm the one who is initiating it. It could also be that one could bring it up so as to protect the other party. Because as she said, in the eventuality of something happening, the party who is the one who has the most materially in the situation may not even be in the position to determine what happens with what they have, because things have been left without this being addressed. I know that when we talk about wills can address this, wills can take care of this, but what about what happens when the will is not even being considered? The man is still alive, or the parties are still alive, and something just happens. And in our situation in Africa, we don't deal with just a man and a woman in their marriage. The family can step in, unless it's been established very carefully. The family has no business in these things. And then sometimes I, as a woman, I can imagine a situation where I think I discussed this with you one day, Mike. One day we were with my husband and another friend of ours, and I said, even I as a woman, I don't see a problem with initiating this conversation. If I'm with a man that I know has worked so hard and has so much, just simply because I know that as a human being, there's a possibility that he might have a lingering doubt somewhere in the back of his mind. He might really trust me, but there's so many things to consider. He might have a doubt somewhere in the back of his mind. And I want to preempt things and remove that, from the equation so that we are working on something that's more balanced. Because if I'm coming from a place where I don't really have much, I don't want it to be a fear for him in the back of his mind. Is it possible that somewhere, somehow, this lady is eyeing what I've worked for? And then he's always being careful, and then he starts thinking of how to hide things. No, I prefer let's just have everything in the open and be comfortable. But I know that I cannot be speaking for all ladies because everybody has their different makeup, their personalities, and different intentions in going into relationships. I think I've spoken too much. I'm so
Well, so
sorry.
can I say something? I think that also the misconception is that the prenup is done because the person has assets, because there are people who don't have any assets and they do a prenup because they're thinking ahead into the future that, okay, just in case I acquire a whole bunch of assets, just in case things don't go well, I still want to have a prenup. So there is that to factor in, right? That it's not always because you think the person has money at that present time. But, but I don't know. Sorry, but I have to ask a question though, and maybe you guys can help me with this. Just coming from our culture, from the Nigerian culture. So if you're coming to get married and you as the woman or the man come to meet the in-laws and say, okay, we're getting married, but we'll be also signing a prenup. How is that going to be received? Or
That's very interesting.
how are people going to receive it?
That's quite interesting. Um, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm just like, where am I going to even start peeling this onion skin that has too many layers that Mike has pointed out as well. So this question is interesting that you're bringing a woman to a family in Nigeria who have been expecting you to have somebody that you want to stay with for better, for worse, and you want to say there's a prenup. But the first question is, why would you want to tell your family about a prenup if I'm going to bring another layer? What are you up to? But if you look at marriage, and if we start looking at marriage as another topic, we're going to veer off that topic of prenup in itself. But if you also remember that marriage is not just um, religious, it's been traditional, but there's a legal side to it. You're not going to say that you're getting married and you get married in a church or in any setting without going to registry. So that community right now has a legal part of it. And before you go into a legal obligatory agreement with another person that you want to cohabit and live together, and there should be some terms. So the term is that you want to walk together and agree, and that's if you bring the Bible into it. He said, can two walk together except they agree? So if you're working in the same direction, should there be a disagreement, you stop working together, and that is the essence of divorce. So should things now go into playing dirty, you have assets, you have children, you have other things, who gets protected? That's why you bring in lawyers, you bring in people. If you're not lawyers, you have mediators who want to split things, or there's even death. So it doesn't have to be divorce, death, and then the family traditionally tries to start claiming stuff. And we know that in our own setting, the culture, that if you don't have some legal document, some will, some backing, or even a prenup or intra-nup or post-nup of some things, someone is going to be hurt. So an agreement in prenup is also an agreement, like marriage, that look, should things happen, you might even be the one that gets everything. A prenup doesn't have to be negative. It's just that most of the prenup that Mike has mentioned and what we've seen that has made headlines has been prenups that somebody says, I'm going to protect what I have.
Yeah.
So if you look at that perspective, women have suffered in our traditional setting on far more than men. I'm not saying men don't suffer. In our traditional setting, some families take everything the man has, even if he's working with an organization that will pay him off or pay him after death or whatever. What happens is that the woman suffers because the man's family sometimes takes everything. If there's a legal document that gives her something, then she can contest it. And it could be better for her and her kids. And God forbid if those kids are young, then she's at the mercy of all the charity people. Someone who's been living in houses and having cars and drivers and everything. Just with the death of a man or divorce or a disagreement, what happens? The woman is out there to dry. So these are different examples that, sometimes they come home and don't let us see that, oh, because we're Christians or we're Muslims or we got some other things, we're not looking at the big picture of the society we have out there and what is happening. There's too many dysfunctionality. So the question is still back to prenup. It is an important thing. It's an elephant in the room. Different scenarios, different cases. When we keep opening it up, people will see that it makes sense to consider it. It is difficult to discuss it amongst traditionalists, like I said, back to what I'm saying. But I'm not a traditionalist, I'm a progressive. You have to wait case by case. So I open the floor again and make you guys think about it.
Well, it's interesting, but I'd like to remind us of certain things here. So it's sad that there's a lot of ignorance in Africa, okay? But the reality is every culture, every country, let me be a bit more specific, every country has legislation for marriage already. So even when the marriage ends in a divorce, there's a legal framework for it on who should have what and how assets should be shared. The idea of a prenup was brought in to cut out the paperwork, to cut out the time, to cut out endless time in court. That's the idea. Because if there's a prenup, people just go to it and say, okay, let's see what it says, right? Without the messy divorce. Let's not forget that in every society, no woman, legally speaking, is left high and dry. Okay?
Sorry, say that again?
No person in the marriage is left high and dry. I mean,
what do you mean? Say, what do you mean, please?
So what I mean is nobody in the marriage, there's protection for every party in the marriage. That's what I mean, legally, already. It's already there, okay? In the Constitution, it's already there.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Just that.
Yes, but it's just that people feel the idea of a prenup, like we know it today, especially in the media, it's coming from a selfish angle. Okay, like somebody feels they have something that they don't want to part ways with if it doesn't work out. They feel that the person might be a gold digger, or they feel that the person will come and reap what they didn't sow. And so they draw a line as to whether man or woman, what they can get. Okay, that's how I understand prenup as it is today.
Okay, can I?
Oh, hold on a second. That's not the actual idea of why prenup came into play. But this is what people have made it to be right now.
Is it not?
No, it's not. A prenup is just to make it easier, whether it be divorce or even in debt. It's not just divorce. It also comes into play where there's debt.
Isn't that the will, though? Isn't that
It's a
something
bit
that?
separate. It's a bit separate because right from the, a will usually can be contested by multiple parties, but a prenup is between two people.
Okay.
So I want to comment. I had read something today that sometimes people have a prenup and then they have a will that maybe they've done after the prenup was made, and then the way the wording of the will is, it conflicts with how the prenup was set up, and so there are many times that the prenup actually may not even hold in court because the will, being maybe a more recent document, might supersede the prenup. So I did see that this morning when I was reading.
And I can imagine that that's a real case situation. But the thing is, that's why you need a lawyer to do these things, right? So if you have a prenup and you're going to do a will, your lawyer should know about that.
Yes.
Unless the party did not inform the lawyer at the time of drawing up the will that they had a prenup, right?
So the way this works, if there's a prenup and circumstances have changed after the prenup, the legal framework will rest on the lawyer to sort it out, to harmonize it with the prenup.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
So the way I feel is if either party has changed their mind about what they signed in the prenup, then at that point they should actually be dissolving the marriage before the will. Because the prenup actually sets the framework for the marriage in the first place. So the will doesn't really hold because the will goes beyond two people that agreed for the prenup. That's the way I interpret it. But
so what I think is this, and I know that Mike is trying to tell us about prenup and interpretation of it. My understanding is if we know or we have even the concept of prenup, should we be putting it into our new setting, knowing that as he saved more, as he created more pain, as he saved or protected more people from the damages of divorce? And then if you look at the society we're looking at now, our society, the divorce rate is increasing. So it's following the trend of what the Western world is. We're also behaving more like Western people. Are we now saying that we should not go down that trend? Why are we discussing it? It's because it is imminent. People are going to start looking at prenup. And if you look at prenup, it tidies a few things. It also helps people um, from a really bad marriage. And as a Christian, you look at it, you don't want to go into divorce. You want to work things out. But what if things are so bad that you want to walk away? And the reason why you can't walk away is that you're going to be in pain, you're going to lose too many things. But with a prenup, you might actually feel better. You want to walk away. And we're looking at it as a Nigerian. What about the entire Africa? Where are they with it? Where are the other parts of Africa? What are they thinking? People are suppressed, people are oppressed. We know that marriage, some societies cater for the women traditionally, but even the Western education, the Western mindset is affecting people's behavior. So we're now having what we call a remix of our culture. Our culture is not traditional anymore, it's a hybrid. So if you look at prenup, when we bring in prenup, rather than us trying to define or redefine prenup, should he be introduced and in what way? Should we be protecting more women? If we don't want it, if our culture rejects it, why are we behaving like the Western or the American system when people have lots of exes and then they have prenups and they walk away? Maybe people will think twice, but these are the things I think we should explore. I'm not sure whether this avenue or this discussion will let us dig deep into a lot of things, but I'll wait for Uzo to redirect us and let us go into the nitty-gritty of these
Yeah,
things.
my mind is going in all sorts of directions. Were you about to say something, Mike?
yes, I just want to say something from what comment
On
on
what I said.
Darius, yeah. So Okay, let's take Africa for instance, right? Because I don't know if they were Africans, were diaspora, but were Africans.
We actually want to address it from our point of view and how it's affecting our lives, how things affect our lives now.
Okay, so in Africa, where let's not forget that the Western culture is different from the African culture. Dayo spoke about hybrid. It's true. And that hybrid is coming into force because of education now, right? People are getting more exposed. But let's not forget the concept of marriage in Africa is different to the concept of marriage in the Western world. In Africa, when a woman marries, you marry the family. That's the general thinking, okay?
Exactly.
And the family marries her.
Yes, and the family marries that. In the West, it's different. It's, strictly the two people. That's it.
That's great, because this is something that I even think that we should talk about later. How is the family involved in our marriages today, and how do we think is wise for us to continue to go forward, to take a step back? What should we change? So I'm sorry for interrupting. Yeah.
So to make it easy, we have to put that in perspective because it will never change. That's just the way it is. Okay. So if the same
it'll never change,
it most likely will not change.
But I agree with Mike. Like,
let me just. So if we understand that, then we will understand how difficult it would be for prenup to gain popularity in Africa.
It's not going to gain popularity. Don't let us.
Yeah, it won't.
So the point I'm making is, if the same family, depending on which family, of course, if the same family throws the woman out when the marriage ends, why would they consider prenup?
No, they won't consider it. And this is a good question, Mike. And I thank you for saying what you said. But I don't want to take over and give my thoughts before Chi says what she wanted to say. So
yes.
I'll let Chi talk. Go on,
Thank you.
Chi.
You know what I wanted to say was, like, you made a good comment, Dayo, that the Nigerian culture, and I'll just speak about that, is becoming more of a hybrid culture, right? And so we've got the traditional and the Western, and they're trying to marry themselves. But yet you still fight against that traditional mindset for most families. Like, there are many families that are enlightened and very westernized, and they won't have any issue with the idea of a concept of a prenup. But there are families that are so traditional that even if the marriage ends, in my perspective, I could be wrong, but even if the marriage ends, they will still want to come and divide up the property. You're holding your prenup document, and they're going to tell you that they don't care about that.
Even when you're holding the will.
Yeah. So how do you get those kind of people to change their mindset?
So you cannot. But back to what Mike said, because Mike touched so many points there, that you are married to the family when you're married. So you cannot remove that from understanding when you're getting divorced, if you want to get divorced, if that guy has treated you or that woman has treated you badly, or there's some kind of disaffection that is causing the divorce and you want to go your own way. The prenup helps, even if the family is aware and things are not going to go down reconciliation. The prenup helps because you both agree that should we this this bar or go our own way, we have some things that will go this way and this way. So you've split your assets before you get people to before you fight dirty. Let me just put it that way, because the reverse is dirty, So when you were friends, you talk about what is going to be yours, what is going to be mine, and that is binding when you don't have that agreement during divorce. So let me put it this way: if we're all doctors, and apologies to our viewers, sometimes when patients come in to see us in the hospital, they have what is called an advance directive. If they don't have that, at that point, we call them and say, what is your goals of care? What do you want us to do, Alpha? It doesn't change the fact that we'll look after you, but should some things happen, what are your wishes? Prenup may be related to that. It's not apples and oranges exactly like that, but we're not praying that we divorce, but should there be some things that are irreconcilable, what should we do? And let us do it now when our eyes are open. when there's no bad blood, what
Thank you
will
so
be
much.
yours? So let us look at that, and how can we use that to the advantage that we're not praying for divorce? It's hard to even divorce in the African setting
Who even
traditionally.
wants to? Who wants to go through that
Nobody
kind of
wants to,
thing?
but then things are getting really bad that people are
And it's
getting
not
into
just in the
marriages.
African. I think normally, who even wants to? Even though it looks like it's happening a lot in certain parts of the world, this thing
Yeah,
is always a conflict. It complicates your life. Nobody really wants to do that,
yeah.
you know. So
So these are the things I want us to kind of see, and I totally respect what Mike said, and it makes me a little bit happier. I wanted to just jump and hug him. That is difficult, very difficult when you're marrying someone and you are marrying the family, and then maybe it's even the family that's made your life more difficult that you want to run. Maybe the guy is an excellent, loving guy without the concept of his family, and due respect to beautiful families that have married people have married into, but some families have created more problem just because of the ulterior motive. And this guy that is
mm,
loving maybe has not seen it and has caused problems for this woman, and this woman has is already having more problems
she has to choose
as a
between her
result.
sanity and
Exactly.
Exactly.
So, but we're not defining the reasons for divorce. We're just saying that will prenup make life easier should things go wrong. Not that they want things to go wrong. There's still a good percentage of marriages that are working. I'm not doing a census of how happy they are, but they are working more than in the Western world.
I just,
So I'll leave it to Uzo to think about again and let us move in another
I just
direction.
like to, yeah, one thing I want to talk about is when we say the Western world, they have more divorces and we are becoming a hybrid kind of society where we're adopting. I think, can we look at it this way? This is the way it occurs to me. I don't really want to think about this is what's happening in the Western world now, and so we're adopting it. What I want to think is that we are living a different type of life now, because even if we are back home, even in our villages back home, people are getting a different type of life. Before we had life was in a this was a pattern of life we had. The man would go to work and the woman would stay home, right? But now things are different and it's been happening sequentially and things are very different now. So that even at home, even in the villages, the woman is not just staying home, she's also contributing financially to the upkeep of the home. And so let's take away what's happening in Western society. The real truth is that what we're dealing with today is different from what we had before. Whether or not it's happening here, it's already happening in our own culture that we are living differently. A man and a woman's relationship is very different today from how it was before, and so that's why things are becoming are the way they are. That equality that we talk about between a man and a woman, it's just because of this, because the woman is now doing more than the woman that was 100 years ago, 80 years ago was doing. That's what's happening. And so we can't expect things to remain the same. And then I want to also talk about, so it's not really that we're adopting, some people might think superficially on the surface that we're adopting Western behavior. But the thing is, you already adopted some things from them before, and that's what's contributing to this. So not necessarily the divorce that we're adopting. I don't know if I'm making sense. If I'm
Yeah.
coming across.
Mhm.
And then also the so we should talk about the reality that we need to deal with. And then I want to also talk about when somebody is talking about it looks selfish. You know, Mike, I think you mentioned that it's coming from a selfish place. But I said that for myself as a woman, um, I would not mind being the one who actually opens up this conversation. See, I find that difficult conversations, people don't want to have difficult conversations, but the truth is, whatever you are supposed to work on today and you don't work on it today, is going to come and bite you in the butt tomorrow. So let us do whatever we need to do today, however ugly it is. Let's just get into it and start doing it now, because we want our tomorrow to, so that things are smoother. If something is not going to work right now, let us know it. And then we'll just end it there, right? So we know that tomorrow I'm working with a clear head. I don't know, maybe it works for some people to just, go ahead, go along with things. But for me, and I'm sure that if I'm like this, and there are many other people who are like me, I like to just let me know let me know where I'm going. Let's know what's going to how is it going to look? You know, if it's not looking like what I think I'm going to be happy with, let me just stop it now. Do you understand? Stop it right now. Don't take me all the way there, and then I'm going to start being flustered, and I don't know where I am. You know, so let's have a discussion. So I will, as a woman, I don't mind because I want to put that man's mind at rest. Look, I know you have a lot. You've done so much hard work. Let us talk about this prenup thing now. You know, and let's remember the prenup is not necessarily saying that I won't get anything. It's just going to say that maybe it's going to say something like, if we're going to separate because you did something wrong, because you tried to do this to me, because you beat me, or because we found that you were adulterous or something, you know, or because maybe you have a rape charge, you know, something, then this is what happens, you know, just to protect me. So not necessarily being selfish. See, I'm not being selfish there. I'm actually giving you a situation where I want your mind to be at rest. I'm not taking your stuff from you if we have this prenup and we agree in the case of a divorce. So you know that I'm coming with clean hands. I'm not coming there trying to maybe, you know, because we have lots of gold diggers these days. It's the truth. It's the reality that we're living with. You know.
So,
So,
let me finish. I will ask two questions to address what you've just said, but finish.
I'm done. I've taken too much time even.
Okay, so here's the thing. We must not lose sight of the fact that prenup works because there's rule of law in the Western world. That's the first thing. Okay, the reason why we can all brag with prenup because we know that the law will back it up.
Yes.
All
yes.
Right. So
it's a different ball game, man.
It's a different ball. In Africa, it's not like that.
Yes.
In Africa, you would sign a prenup. Fine.
You will have your legal documents.
Yes, you have a legal document. The family will frustrate you.
Come and enforce it now. Let's see you.
Yes, you see, it's like when you have a land in Africa and then you have three people fighting for the land, even though they are papers. That's the way it is. It's prenup. It is a legal document. So how do you enforce it in a place like Africa where there's a rule of law?
Can I say something? Does anyone want to respond to that?
Because I did say something that there's layers and layers and layers and layers when we talk about prenup. Okay, because there's a lot of culture involved. There's a lot of environment involved. Okay. The other thing I want to mention from what you said is in the Western world, we already have legal codes that protect each party in the marriage, especially the woman. Okay, we know very well that in the Western world, the way it's enforced, the court to make sure you pay alimony or whatever. You know, in the Western world, you would actually leave the house if you are the man and go and find somewhere else to live, right? And nobody can do anything about it in the Western world. So the question now is, if the woman is already protected, okay, from the get-go, in case the marriage doesn't work, what is the actual idea of a prenup? Why do we need that extra layer of a prenup? So it could be either party not feeling secure. It could be either party having some other motives. That's why this topic has layers and layers, because there's an individual standpoint. There's an individual perspective when it comes to prenup. It's not universal. Two people might have what they want to protect, and then they come up with the idea of a prenup.
Yeah.
And two other people may say, no, we don't need prenup.
Yeah.
So let's not lose sight of the fact that there's always an individual perspective. There's always a motive to prenup. Always.
Yeah, so Mike, what I've said, and it's part of what I've said before. And if it's not part of what I've said before, I thought about it in my head. So while I was speaking. But I think I mentioned it that is one, it is in all seriousness that there are layers. And you need to also deal with people case by case basis. Also, if you look at it, and we've talked about the concept of enforcer and everything, there are scenarios when people have suffered. We're not saying that women are not protected. We're not saying that children are not protected. We're not saying men are not protected. But a lot of people are silent and they are suffering because
Yeah, you
there's
make a
nothing. But listen, there are a lot of people that are silent and they're suffering, and they're not, there's nothing. I'm not saying that prenup will help everybody, but prenup is a concept that should be considered and should be looked into as an option in in some settings. And we know that traditionally in the olden days, and these olden days are not too far off, women are looked after. People, women are not left alone. And in very rare occasions, women are given a basket put on their head and say, "Look, go away because your husband is dead. Go away because there's a divorce now." And it is getting more complicated. People are not just marrying from the same tribes, they've married from far away. They've left, they've gone with a man, they've done a lot of things, and things are happening. So we're not looking at it from the simplistic perspective alone. The reasoning for the need for prenup is there in our society, no doubt about it. Will it gain ground? Will it um, be like in the Western world? No. And I'm not sure, I've not seen an African that has done a prenup personally, but there
Yeah,
are
like in
Africans
Nigeria,
that
right?
have, yeah, but there are Africans that have done prenups.
But where did they
So
do it? Is it in Nigeria or in the West?
Actually, I
I
think they
cannot,
do it
I
in
can,
Nigeria because when I look, sorry, Dio, when I looked last night, I see that there are law firms in Nigeria that actually offer prenups, and
Hmm.
what they say is that it's not mentioned in like the Nigerian law, but it's also not unconstitutional to have a prenup. So I think that there is that room for prenup, at least in the African culture. But
yeah,
I want
that's
to
what I
just, yeah,
wanted to answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will
Okay,
not cut you. I'm not cutting you off, Chi. So I wanted to finish what you're saying. Go on.
But I was going to say just when Uzo was commenting before that, for me, I think I like the idea of a prenup because it gives me that it makes a person open to what their assets are. So going in, I know that you're not hiding your assets. I know exactly what you have because there are people that walk into a
People hide,
marriage and they
or even
hide.
hide their debts.
Yeah,
They actually hide
yes,
their
they
debts
hide
as
their
well.
debts.
So that
Yes.
you go in and you don't know that, oh, you have all these debts.
Exactly, exactly. So I like that, but I feel also that even though I would be open to it, I can see where right from the get-go it can cause problems, right? Because it's like, oh, you're already thinking about divorce and we haven't even said the I do. So I can see how it can cause some insecurity for some people. I can see how it can cause a breakup of a marriage before the marriage has even started. I can see how that relationship can break up because there are many people that would just feel so offended. They will feel
Yeah.
so bad that
Some people,
yeah, because some
some
people
people feel
even
like if you love me, you shouldn't question anything at all.
exactly. And
But
so some
that's
people
not
will say,
healthy.
yeah, and
That's
some
not
people will say, oh,
healthy.
you're calling me a gold digger and I'm not a gold digger.
It's not safe.
Yeah. So there are different layers to this thing.
And I also would then take it from there that if there are different layers, there are different perspectives. And I think we should just give a perspective rather than look for what some people would do and all that. In our traditional society right now, if we say that we want to stay traditional and the society evolves, because in university, I remember we did culture and civilization. We knew that our culture will evolve. Our culture of yesteryears will be studied.
Hmm.
Even when we were in university, is different from the generation right now. Even our own university, now they're private universities. The children of nowadays in Nigeria are not behaving like how we used to. So
That's what I wanted to say.
there are different perspectives to this. So by the time they grow up, you that you're saying, oh, it may not be what it is.
No,
Your
it is
own
going
children,
to.
your
It's
own
going
children
to.
when they start marrying, and guess God forbid,
Guess
your
what?
mouth will your
People are
mouth.
even saying they won't even marry because they don't want to get into these complications.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
the part I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
Your mouth will open aghast and say, why don't you do a prenup? And if that's the first thing you
That's
do,
how I got
and
in.
and this is what will come in from African parents. Because
Yes.
do you think they're going to choose African kids? Your kids are
Yeah.
grown up here, and they're going to go back to Nigeria, go back to Africa, and they might go and meet somebody, and the person start treating them traditionally and misbehaving, and say, "Look, do a prenup.
Yeah,
And then you are the ones that will be the first to even introduce it. Now, the
exactly.
Nigerian law, I know about Nigerian law because I have there's a personal link to that. I don't want to just reveal all my personal links in Nigeria, but I know about Nigerian law.
Huh.
And the issue with prenup is it is an agreement, whether it is in the Nigerian law or not. It is an agreement. And
Yeah.
if it's signed before witnesses and is a legal document that is binding. And when both parties sign it, not under duress, it will be something that should be honored. So whether we know that it's already there or not, they are being introduced. What I've just said is personally, I don't know somebody. Not that there has not been prenups in Nigeria. I've never seen a prenup before because I didn't go into a prenup. So I don't know but some people would have seen it. Some people, I've heard about friends who have gone into prenups. Their marriages are still standing because they're open about it. There's some things that could not be discussed between a man and a woman before marriage before. Now people have to discuss it, even medically. Things
And
like AS, SS. So there's so
oh,
many things to put into prenup. So you need to open it up. It's not just
yeah.
financial. Your blood type. Should we terminate a pregnancy if our children before
Oh,
birth is SS? People are talking about it. You
honestly, it's
know,
true.
so I would say, look, there's so many things that, and I agree with you that are layers and layers. So don't just see it as an end to a financial asset. It
Mm-hmm.
is something that should be considered, but it has to be case by case
case.
basis.
Hmm.
And also remember that it is not you and the woman. Marriage is not love. And I've said this thing
It's
to
not
some
only
people.
love.
It's not, no, marriage is not love, but you need love to marry, you know,
Oh
because what you're
no,
dealing.
I think that I will say something. I think that in observing some people, I think that some people are actually marrying, knowing and agreeing, and probably even discussing between themselves. We don't have love between us, but we are going to do this business
It is a
because they go in
transaction.
there. Huh?
Yeah, I don't want to
And
start talking about marriage. Marriage is a covenant, marriage is a transaction.
Depending on where you're
And
coming from, depending on what
hmm
your
yeah,
principles and beliefs are.
yeah, and those who
hmm
introduce marriage traditionally, before being a Christian, there's been marriages.
hmm
So you don't need to be a Christian to have marriage or to be married. You just need to have agreements be to have a marriage, and all
A
religions
plan.
marry.
You have a
Yeah.
business, you have an agreement
So
and a plan.
and people that are aristocratic marry. People that are non-aristocratic, if you're a
But
peasant,
this
you
is a
marry.
topic for another day.
Yeah, and people celebrate it. The question is, before you go into that important social agreement, religious agreement, cultural agreement amongst all nations, should you have a pre-marital or pre-nuptial agreement, and for what reason? And should we be having it in our own society? Every society celebrates marriage. That is one thing I want us to take home. But then some societies are now responding to things and issues in marriages. And that is why the requirements and the big society now are talking about prenuptials or prenup. That's what prenuptials are, to reduce the pain or to make things more amicable should some things happen.
And
Traditionally, yeah,
that's what the goal
traditionally,
should be.
exactly. Traditionally, people that are in favor of the woman will say, let's give her something. It is out of the generosity of their heart. But right now, it is more legal, it is more straightforward, and people will remember that it is done when everybody and the eyes are dry.
So can we take a
so
vote?
Okay, sorry. Let me just make one point.
okay.
It's funny because at the end of the day, when two people come together to get married, they have stuff in their minds, right? And they have their own perspective all the time. Okay? And there's always some level of mistrust in quote, if you like. Like you question whether is this a lifetime commitment, or could something happen?
You mean if they bring up something, or even if they're not discussing anything?
No, like, okay, let me give you an example. So in a society where there's already the rule of law, we know the legislation surrounding divorce already. Okay, where there's a rule of law, we already know there's legislation. Okay. Now, for instance, let me give you an example. Like if a billionaire marries somebody in the US, for instance, okay, obviously we all know that this guy has lots of money. He doesn't want to part with 50% of the money to the woman when they're divorced. And so he comes up with an idea of a prenup on a fixed settlement and says, if we divorce, you will get a single payout of 1 million, and that's it. That's prenup. Prenup is always financial. It's always asset-based. It's never anything else. If you go and look at what prenup is, it's never
asset-based, yeah.
So let's not get carried away or get confused. Okay? A prenup, I said we're talking about something else. A prenup is always asset-based. And so again, this is where I say there's always a level of mistrust.
When you talk about prenups?
Yes.
Yeah, but what if I am the one who has less, and I'm the one who is bringing it up?
Yeah, it's both sides. It's both sides. A prenup can come from a woman, and it can come from the man. It's not just from the man. Yeah,
no, I'm saying what if the party who has less, who is coming in with less, is the one who is broaching the subject? Where is the distrust in that?
No, it doesn't make sense. Why would you want a prenup when the law already protects you? You are the lesser person, right? You have the lesser.
It's not that she wants or he wants a prenup. It's just that he knows that this person might possibly. I want to discount that fear. I want to take it away. I want the person to feel, to know that that's not.
This is just hypothetical. What you're saying now is hypothetical. In reality, a prenup doesn't go the other way. It doesn't come from somebody who has more advantage.
No. They're not the ones writing. They're just suggesting because they want to put the mind at ease. They want to put the other person's mind at ease. Is what I'm saying.
It really happens. It really happens because.
Yes, I'm sure it really happens.
The law is already on the side of the woman.
Besides which, human beings are generally selfish.
Yeah, so the law is already on the side of the man or the woman who has the lesser asset. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's no need for the one that has the lesser asset to come up with a prenup idea.
Yeah.
So that's hypothetical. So the prenup, because it's financial and asset based. Sorry, I have to take this call. It's from the hospital. I'll meet my.
Okay.
Okay. So because Mike is taking the call, maybe Chi, you want to say something?
Okay, I was just trying to think here about what he was saying, that, someone that doesn't have much finances, it wouldn't make sense for them to broach this topic of a prenup. But I'm going to say I disagree, because in that scenario that he gave, maybe the billionaire wants to marry somebody that only has, 100,000. And, and I agree with Uzo that could be my 10, way of saying, maybe 10,000. Look, I'm just marrying you because I like you. I don't want any of your money.
I'm in love with you. Yeah. I have only 10,000, but I'm in love with you. Really.
Exactly. So I don't see why someone that doesn't have assets can't broach the topic of having a prenup, because it puts that person at ease, the other person at ease, that, okay, you're marrying me because you love me. You're not marrying me because of what.
See, the reason he's saying that is because between you and I mean, all of us, we know that there will be a higher percentage of people who will be coming with that 10,000 or that 1,000 or nothing, who will not even want to talk about it. In fact, if you even talk about that prenup thing, they're going to start acting all angry and everything. So that's just bottom line, because human beings are generally more selfish. But it doesn't mean that it makes no sense for someone to say it. It makes sense still, because for me, the reason I'll be saying it is because I want us to be comfortable and relaxed and not be worrying. Because how do I know that this person is not worrying about this? How do you know that that's not going to lead him to do several different things?
So Uzo, my own perspective, I will bring it to you. I like what she said about It doesn't have to be the richer one bringing it up and someone who has something to lose. You know what?
I said
If
too.
if you have if you bring in a rich man, and I don't want us to just look at prenup and say, oh, a billionaire, and
Okay, we'll
everything
bring
we
in a
look
rich
at.
woman then. Let's bring in a rich woman.
No, 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 I'm not. It doesn't have to be man or woman,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to be. So what we're saying is this: somebody has a potential to, in a sense, start acquiring some
Sorry,
assets.
did I miss
You
much?
know,
Maybe.
well, what you miss, you've missed. You watch the video. So, but it was Chi that was saying some things, and they were looking at your perspective and trying to reason out whether they agree with you. If
Okay.
that is from a billionaire's perspective. I think, have I summarized it well?
Hmm.
Yeah. So what I'm just saying is this, that if you look at the Western world, there's a reason for the prenup. Let's leave the reason. If you want the reason, we know the reasons. And it could be due to put my mind at rest from whoever, whether it's a woman or the man, let's
Or
leave that.
experiences
Be-
they've had.
Hmm.
Whatever the reason is, or because of a financial asset you don't want to lose just because maybe you're 3 years into marriage, 15 years into marriage, whatever the marriage is. You could even sign a prenup. It depends on what you want. That for every year of marriage, you're entitled to 1 million. So if you spend 20 years, you get 20 million. Some people do all sorts of prenups, and that is just financial. So, and some people that way you make sure you stay longer so you get more money. Some people do it. And let us not look at the definitions. Let's
But
look at our
that's
society.
unfortunate though, because that means that some people will
Yeah,
actually stay just because of what they don't want to lose.
exactly. And some people stay in marriage because of that as well. So that is
Yeah.
not the
People are
issue
already
with
doing it
prenup.
anyway. They're already doing it,
Yeah,
right?
so what we're saying and what I could get from Mike is there are motives to these things. And if you want to bring up the prenup, then your motive, you're already thinking of a way out.
Yes.
And that is what Mike is trying to say.
Yes, that's true.
Now, and
But
now,
I disagree.
yeah,
Oh.
I'm not saying you should not disagree.
Mm,
That is a perspective. And you brought in a topic of prenup.
mm.
There are motives to this. Then, and like we know, whether you're a traditionalist, whether you're Christian, whether you're a liberal, whether you're conservative, this thing is not comfortable. Remember what I said is the elephant in the room.
Mm.
There's nobody that say, "Oh, let us talk about it. It is sweet topic." If you bring
It's
it
not
up, I
sweet, but
want.
let us talk about it. Let us talk about the sad topics, because if we try to get away from them, we will never get away. We're still going to suffer something in the future. So let's stop
That's
trying
what
to
I'm saying.
escape painful things.
So what I'm saying is this, and we need to also see it from what Mike is presenting, that there's a degree of insecurity, there's a degree of mistrust.
Correct.
Now, when you initiate this topic, some people are happy to do it because they see the future that look, this guy, maybe somebody has whispered to you, maybe he's a member of your family as a woman or the guy, you better do a prenup. That guy, I know they trust him. That guy, I smell money, go there rich. And if you not do your prenup, that woman go squeeze you. So people whisper, yeah, you have, and you said you hear voices because you're insecure. You have trust issues. There are a lot of things. And then there's some things that maybe you cannot take and you can take right now. And later say, well, I've done enough, I'm done. I need to go and I need some money. So there's so many reasons why you want to protect yourself. It's all about mistrust, insecurity. If you go with the Christian perspective as a Christian, then you should not do prenup.
Correct.
If you go with the traditional love and it's for better, for worse that you said, how bad can it be? Why are you doing prenup? If you go with, and this is me just trying to be an advocate for different perspective. If you look at it, if you go with a romantic
Then you have to do business with it.
mentality, why are you even bringing it up?
But you both have to be on the same page and have to be of the same
So
mind. But
why,
how do you truly
but
know
why,
a person?
so why are you not going into marriage? So that's the question. So
So
that's the thing. So you need to now look at how we are approaching it. You say you have to be same-minded. Then why are you going into marriage when you're not trusting the person that
Yeah.
this is your life partner? Why
Don't
are
ask
you
me.
even
Ask
going
them.
into it? So you need to now see that the Western world of falling in love, Western world of marrying and eloping and doing a single marriage without involving the family has actually eroded into marriage. That now marriages, divorces are now coming in rather than fix the problem, they're going into prenups. It's just like
I
a
have to disagree with
society.
that though.
Just 1 second, though, 1 second before, because I know I'm talking too much. I just want to use this example, though they're not apples and oranges. A society that keeps shooting people, and then you blame it on mental health. If you take the gun
Gone
away,
away.
then every society has mental health. But how many
Mm-hmm.
people are dying during
Are being shot.
during gun?
Are
It's
being
the
shot.
same
Yeah.
thing. If you go into marriages because of the unchristian way or the other ways, and it is not on solid ground, then rather than not going to marriage and
Not on
solidify,
solid ground.
then
Really.
yeah, so why are you not going for prenup to end the marriages? I rest my case.
So can I ask a question real quick? How about the timing of this prenup? So, a lot of people cohabit or live together before they get married, right? So is it when you start cohabiting together, start living together, is that when you now start to do the prenup? Or are you actually going to live together, then get the prenup before you go to get the vows done? Like, what's the timing?
So can I answer that question?
Mm-hmm.
Mike,
That's why
Mike,
yes.
I was
So,
laughing because I knew you would want to answer the question.
Why? Why?
give me 1 minute. Let me just address that.
Go
So
on.
first of all, let's determine who our audience are. Okay. So we're all Africans here. End of the day. We're in diaspora, but we're all Africans. So first of all, is it where we are from? Is it even permitted for you to go and cohabit and live with somebody?
But people do.
No, no,
Even,
no. Oh,
yes.
wait. Let's not lose
Um,
sight. At the end of the
have
day,
you have you answered the question?
I answered the question. Is it?
So Mike, so
No,
what
no,
I'm saying, the
no, wait,
reason why I laugh
no,
is
wait.
that
Uh,
wait now, so that I
correct.
just the reason why I laugh is that cohabiting is an abomination in our society,
It is.
and
It
it's
is.
something that is even worse than talking about prenup. Who are you living with? Are you married? Somebody
So
comes, you are living with that person. You
yes.
know, so it's not something that we gloss over. Hmm.
No, it's not.
Uh,
It's not. It's not because I think it's a very dangerous precedent as
Yes.
Africa. Because
Yes.
first of all, you are not white. Okay, due respect to white, and I say white not because I'm racist or anything, but the reality is they are
some
culturally.
white people don't even accept it. I
Yeah,
know
some
some
white
white
people
people
don't
that
accept it.
will say, "Look, oh, before I go into that guy's house, he has to marry me."
Yeah, it's
Because
And
it,
there are
even
it's
people
common
that,
sense. It's actually common sense. This is not even about. Let's even leave morals out of it. We'll talk about this on another day. It's actually common sense.
the guy will not even respect you. That's why they're splitting up. That's why the guy will
Yes.
beat you up because you already lost your dignity to go and start cohabiting with the guy
No,
that you.
but then we are talking about something. It actually also depends because you are talking about somebody who is living in. I know this is going to sound crazy. You're talking about somebody who is living with two people living together, and you're saying the person has lost their dignity.
No,
You
no. What
don't
I
know
said,
that
no,
you don't know that
no,
they've lost their dignity. You're assuming that they have done things that will have led them to have lost their dignity. Do you
no,
understand? You're
Uza,
assuming things.
Uza,
no. See, the
Uza.
fact that wait,
I'm
you
smiling. I'm smiling again because we also need to look at, even though we cannot talk about that topic traditionally, Chi's perspective makes sense. That if you don't get to know the person, you're going into the marriage, and how
Thank
do you know
you.
the person?
We will talk.
The-
This is another topic
you
for
know,
another day.
hold on.
yeah, no, wait now. I like to balance it now,
We have to be
but
careful. We're going to talk until the night, until night,
wait.
until
So,
midnight.
no, it's your fault. But I would say this. What I'm just saying is that Chi's perspective is not acceptable traditionally.
it's not.
It is not in any way,
Let's
and I will
address
not.
it. Let's address
And
it
I
another
will.
day.
And I no, no. What I'm saying is I will not accept it, although it is happening.
No, no,
That is
no.
what I
We
just
we
want to
need to
say.
address it and then address. So, how do we actually deal with the issue of getting to know this person? Because there are different reasons. Because somebody just has an issue right now. They
Okay.
only got to find out that the person that they got married to is not even able to it's not even able to oh Uzo, getting old. It's not even able to consummate the marriage.
Okay.
Okay.
Ah,
So
Okay.
that's
that one,
another
another one. No.
that's
This is
another
another
thing.
topic.
Quick question, Uzo. Quick question,
Yeah.
Uzo. So even when you get married, you are still knowing the person.
That's gonna what?
You are still in the process of knowing the person. Do you know that?
Yes. Well, okay,
So,
that's another day. Let's not
wait,
jump
so
into
what's the
that.
guarantee that just because you go and stay with the person, you are better
No,
placed to know?
no. Let's okay, don't worry, another day. We'll deal with this on another day.
And I agree with you, Mike, totally. So, who's or summarize? What do you think? Do you think we're ready to discuss prenup in our society?
I think
Should
that
we discuss
whether
it?
we're ready or not, I think that we should open up because somebody told me that he will never consider relocating. A friend of ours said he will never consider relocating because he's not going to put himself in a situation where his wife is going to be able to strip him. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was write an agreement. You guys write an agreement. That shouldn't stop you. Like if you really want to relocate, write an agreement, right? Before you step into because he's afraid of the laws here, and that's
You know
how
what?
I started to.
You know what? Again, I come back to the concept of what marriage should be. Okay?
Of what?
Of what marriage should be. Okay. The reason I talked about God ordaining marriage is because when He made Adam, He made Eve. That was marriage.
But everybody doesn't believe in God.
Okay, I accept. But whether you believe in God or not, marriage is God's idea. It doesn't change the fact. Okay. So the point I'm making is two people coming together to get married. One of the problems why the marriage doesn't work and why they are scared and they've come up with all this prenup arrangement and all this because they carry their own baggages, their own bad baggages.
Yeah.
Two people that come together to get married, they already have bad baggages.
And let's not shame them for it because they're human beings living on the face of the earth.
We're not shaming them, and this is where it comes. It go layer by layer. This is where the home becomes important. Okay, a home that both parents are already divorced. What do you think may happen to the children?
A home that both parents are what?
Already divorced.
Yeah.
What do you think might happen? The likelihood of divorce for the children themselves is high.
Yes, naturally, ordinarily, right?
So this is what I mean by baggages. Okay. So when two people come together to get married, they don't even trust themselves. That is why they come up with the prenup.
Hey, don't say this thing now because it depends on who is coming up with this.
You know what, Mike, you've said this thing in this session already. And the point is taken, and this is what I think about this. We're going to see it as a controversial topic no matter what.
It is.
Yeah, and the issue that we have accepted,
let's be real.
The reality of it is some things are coming to us in our culture, in our society, by the fact that we are evolving, full stop.
And we're living in reality.
Yeah, even marriage amongst Christians have issues. Marriage that is ordained by God have issues. Marriage that is not in a Christian way have issues. Marriages need work.
Both Christian and non-Christian.
Yeah, no matter whether you're married by a Christian or you live as a Christian or whatever, they have work, they have issues. There's nobody that'll come out of a marriage that will say, "Whew, I saw that coming." That will be a lie. It's the fact that you have some kind of matrix to let it work.
Some people know. Some people know in advance. They know.
Yes,
because
well, some people
go into that marriage,
yeah,
not thinking about it in the way that you and I are thinking about it.
Yeah, but some people, we help them think. Some people just think that that's the next thing to do once you are of a certain age and all that stuff. So they think it's, and they don't understand it. They don't have the concept. Some people actually accept it when they're already married. So that's not just going to that. The reasons for prenup are also there. And there are trust issues. There are insecurity issues. There are financial issues. There are issues. But those issues are real. Full stop. So what I'm just saying now is this, and this is to let everybody realize it. It is an elephant in the room if it is already in the room. I just didn't want
Gotta
to.
deal
I
with it.
just, yeah. How do we deal with it in our society? People are going to talk about it. People are going to raise it. Even people that you think are not talking about it will start thinking about it.
Yeah,
I will
I
rest
mean,
my
I
case.
we've really extended and gone beyond that time. And I know that we all still have lots of things to say, but just because we don't want anyone who is seeing this to feel to like it's going on forever. So may I just round up with this? So the opinions that we've expressed here are our own personal opinions, and we're not suggesting that anybody take anything home, of course. But we just want us to think about. We'll be talking about a lot of things that we generally like to avoid because they're painful and they are complex, but it depends finally on what you want of your life. Do you want to pretend that what is happening right here, you can't see it, and so I'm going to put my head under a pillow? Or do you really want to deal with it because you want to walk on from the next day smoothly? So that's why we want to bring up the topics that we'll be talking about. Um, hopefully this will help one person at least, if not many more. And let us know in your comments when you see this what your thoughts are on it. Thank you, everyone who's been here today. Chi, Dio, Mike, thank you so much for the interesting conversation. I know that we still have so many things on our tongues, but we don't want to
Thank
keep
you,
going.
Uzo.
Okay, it's been
All
great.
right. Take
Enjoy the rest
care.
of your weekend.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye-bye.
I'm going back to bed.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, guys.